The story opens with James Keller standing at the edge of the Unity Pavilion on Concordia Station, watching the celebration of the newly signed peace treaty between humanity and the Kelthir Ascendancy. After 3 years of border conflicts and tense negotiations, peace has finally been achieved, and tonight's celebration is supposed to symbolize the beginning of a new era of cooperation. James is here as a junior cultural liaison. His job is to facilitate communication between human and Kelthir delegations, to smooth over misunderstandings, to help both sides navigate each other's customs and expectations. It's important work, but it usually keeps him on the periphery of events like this, observing rather than participating. He's been working closely with Lyris, a Kelthir diplomatic attaché, for the past 18 months. She's been his primary contact for understanding Kelthir cultural protocols, and over those months of constant communication, late-night translation sessions, cultural briefings, crisis management during difficult negotiations, they've developed a bond that James has tried very hard to keep professional. Because falling for someone from a species you were recently at war with, someone whose culture is profoundly different from yours, someone who might not even experience emotions the same way humans do, that seems like a complication no one needs during fragile peace negotiations. But watching Lyris across the pavilion tonight, her bioluminescent patterns shifting through colors that he's learned indicate contentment and quiet joy, James admits to himself what he's been avoiding for months. He's completely, hopelessly in love with her. He loves how her analytical mind approaches every problem with patient precision. He loves the dry humor that emerges when she's comfortable enough to drop formal protocols. He loves the way she listens, really listens, when he's explaining human cultural nuances, asking questions that show genuine desire to understand rather than just cataloging information. He's never told her any of this. The peace is too new, the political situation too delicate, and he has no idea if Kelthir even experience romantic love the way humans do. Their cultural briefings focused on diplomatic protocols, not personal relationships. So James has kept his feelings carefully hidden, maintaining professional distance while internally his heart does complicated things every time she smiles at him. Tonight, though, something shifts. As the formal ceremonies conclude and the celebration becomes more relaxed, Lyris approaches him. Her formal diplomatic attire has been replaced with something simpler but elegant, and her bioluminescent patterns are cycling through what James has learned are at-ease colors. "You have been standing alone for an hour," Lyris observes. "This is a celebration. Are humans not supposed to enjoy such events?" "I'm enjoying it," James says, "just from a distance. Observing is kind of my job." "Your job tonight is to participate," Lyris corrects gently. "The peace we worked so hard to achieve, you were part of that. You should be celebrating, not observing from the edges." She extends her hand in a gesture that bridges human and Kelthir greeting customs. "Will you dance with me? The music is pleasant, and I would like to share this moment with someone who understands what it took to arrive here." James's heart does that complicated thing again. "I'd like that, though I should warn you I'm not very skilled at Kelthir formal dancing." "This is not formal dancing," Lyris says as they move toward the floor where others are already moving to music that blends human and Kelthir styles. "This is simply movement and presence. No protocols, no formality, just two people acknowledging that we helped build something worth celebrating." They find space on the floor, and James places his hand carefully at Lyris's waist while she rests her hand on his shoulder, a position that works for both their physiologies. The music is slow, contemplative, designed to encourage connection rather than performance. "You've been avoiding me these past weeks," Lyris says quietly as they begin to move. "Since the final treaty was signed, I noticed the distance. Did I do something to cause offense?" "No," James says quickly. "Not at all. I've just been trying to maintain appropriate professional boundaries now that the intense work phase is over. I didn't want to presume continued friendship when our professional partnership was ending." It's a half-truth. He has been maintaining distance, but not for professional reasons, for emotional ones, because being near her while hiding how he feels has become increasingly difficult. They dance in silence for a moment, and James notices that Lyris's bioluminescent patterns have shifted to colors he doesn't recognize. He's learned to read her patterns for basic emotional states: contentment, curiosity, concern. But these colors are new, and he doesn't have context for what they mean. "I have something to tell you," Lyris says carefully, her voice quiet enough that only James can hear over the music. But I am uncertain if this is appropriate time or if I should wait. Your human customs about such matters are complex, and I do not wish to create awkwardness. You can tell me anything, James assures her, though his heart is racing because her tone suggests something significant. We've worked together for 18 months. We're friends. Whatever you need to say, I'll listen without judgment. Lyris is quiet for a moment, her hand on his shoulder tightening slightly. Kelthir experience emotions differently than humans. We do not have the same intensity of feeling in daily life. But we have something you do not. We can sense emotional resonance. When someone near us experiences strong emotion, we feel it, not the specific thoughts, but the quality and intensity of the feeling. James's stomach drops. If Kelthir can sense emotions, then Lyris has known for months how he feels about her. Every time he's carefully maintained professional distance while internally his heart has been screaming, she's been aware of it. All his careful hiding has been completely transparent to her. Oh, James manages, mortified. So you've known about how you feel, Lyris confirms quietly. Yes, I have sensed it for many months. The intensity of your emotional resonance when you are near me is significant. It has been both overwhelming and... She pauses, searching for words. Precious. Humans feel so deeply, so constantly. It is remarkable and sometimes exhausting to perceive. But your particular emotional resonance toward me has been constant, genuine, and something I have found myself anticipating whenever we interact. James doesn't know what to say to that. She's known for months and never mentioned it, never pulled away, never treated him differently. I should have said something, he finally manages. Should have been honest instead of trying to hide it. I'm sorry if knowing made things uncomfortable. It did not make things uncomfortable, Lyris says, and now her bioluminescent patterns shift to colors that look almost hopeful. It made things complicated. Because Kelthir do not typically experience the kind of intense emotional connection you call romantic love. Our partnerships are formed through careful consideration and mutual benefit analysis. We do not have your concept of falling in love, of experiencing overwhelming emotion toward another person. She meets his eyes directly. But working with you, perceiving your emotional resonance, experiencing your genuine care and dedication, it has awakened something in me that I do not have cultural framework to understand. I find myself wanting to be near you. I anticipate our meetings with something beyond professional interest. I experience distress when you pull away and joy when you are present. I do not know if this is what humans call love, but it is the closest approximation my species has to that experience. James has stopped moving, too stunned to maintain the dance. You're saying you feel the same way I do. I am saying I feel something I have never felt before, Lyris corrects. And that feeling is directed entirely toward you. Whether it matches your experience of love, I cannot say. But it is real, significant, and something I have been uncertain whether to acknowledge given the complexity of our situation. The music continues around them, other dancers moving past, but James and Lyris stand still in their own moment of revelation. I've been in love with you for months, James admits, the words spilling out now that the secret is exposed. I didn't say anything because I didn't know if it was appropriate, if it was possible between our species, if you could even experience emotions that way. I've been trying so hard to maintain professional distance while internally everything in me wanted to tell you how I feel. You do not need to maintain distance, Lyris says softly. I have been waiting for you to acknowledge what I already sensed, hoping you would speak the feelings rather than just experiencing them silently. They resume dancing, but now everything has changed. The careful professional distance is gone, replaced by something more honest and more vulnerable. James, emboldened by her admission, finds himself moving closer, his hand on her waist pulling her slightly nearer. The music shifts to something even slower, more intimate. I want to tell you something, James says quietly, and I need to say it out loud even though you already know. Because there's a difference between you sensing my feelings and me actually speaking them. Lyris nods, her patterns shifting to colors that James is beginning to recognize as anticipation. The music swells, and James makes a decision. He pulls her closer, not inappropriately, but close enough that they're moving as genuine partners rather than just two people sharing a dance. His arm wraps more fully around her waist, and he leans his head close to hers, and in a whisper that he hopes the music will hide from anyone nearby, he says 3 words he's been holding back for months. I love you. He thinks the music will cover his confession. He thinks maybe she'll pretend she didn't hear if it's too much, too soon, too complicated. But he needs to say it, needs to give voice to what he's been feeling rather than just letting her sense his emotions without acknowledging them. What James doesn't fully understand is that for Calthier, spoken words carry different weight than sensed emotions. She's been perceiving his feelings for months, but hearing him speak them. That's a choice, a vulnerability, a commitment that pure emotion doesn't quite convey. Lyris smiles. Not a small, polite smile. A genuine, radiant expression of joy that transforms her face and makes her bioluminescent patterns flare into colors so bright and beautiful that several nearby dancers turn to look. She doesn't pull away, doesn't become awkward or uncertain. Instead, she moves even closer, her hand on his shoulder sliding to the back of his neck in a gesture that's unmistakably intimate by both human and Calthier standards. "I heard you," she says just as quietly. "And I have been waiting to hear those words. Sensing your emotion was gift, but hearing you choose to speak it, that is something else entirely. That is you offering me not just what you feel, but conscious decision to share it." She pauses, then says something in Calthier, words James doesn't know but that his translation implant processes as closest approximation. "I claim this bond. I choose you across all considerations." It's apparently the Calthier equivalent of declaring love, and though the words are formal, the emotion behind them is anything but. "You smiled," James says, still processing the last 60 seconds of his life changing. "I whispered that I love you, and you smiled like it was the best thing you'd heard all day." "It was the best thing I have heard in my entire life," Lyris corrects. "I have been sensing your love for months, but hearing you speak it, feeling you choose to be vulnerable rather than just experiencing emotion silently, that gave me permission to acknowledge what I feel. To stop maintaining careful distance and accept that what we have is real and worth pursuing regardless of the complications." They continue dancing, but now they're not hiding anymore. Other people are watching. Humans and Calthier both noticing that the diplomatic attaché and the cultural liaison are dancing with unmistakable intimacy. Some expressions show approval. Others show concern about the propriety of a relationship between representatives of species that were recently at war. But James finds he doesn't care about the observers. All he cares about is that he finally told Lyris how he feels, and she smiled, and she's holding him like he's precious, and her bioluminescent patterns are displaying colors that his translation implant suggests mean, profound joy and chosen bond. The revelation of their relationship becomes one of the unexpected stories of the Unity celebration. A human and a Calthier who worked together to facilitate peace, who fell in love across species boundaries, who chose to acknowledge their connection despite the complications it might create. Some view it skeptically, questioning whether such relationships can work when species experience emotions so differently. Others see it as hopeful, evidence that the peace between their peoples can go deeper than treaties and diplomatic protocols, that genuine connection is possible even across vast biological and cultural differences. Over the following months, James and Lyris navigate what a relationship between their species actually looks like. They learn each other's emotional languages, James learning to read her bioluminescent patterns with increasing sophistication, Lyris learning to interpret human verbal and non-verbal communication. They discover that her ability to sense his emotions isn't intrusive, but actually allows for deeper honesty. He can't hide when something bothers him, which means they address issues immediately rather than letting them fester. They face challenges. Cultural differences that seemed manageable in professional settings become more complicated in intimate partnership. Calthier express affection through subtle bioluminescent displays and carefully chosen formal phrases. Humans use physical touch and casual endearments. Finding middle ground requires patience and willingness to learn, but they also discover unexpected harmony. Lyris's ability to sense James's emotions means she knows when he needs support even when he won't ask for it. James's human tendency toward emotional expressiveness helps Lyris access feelings her culture taught her to suppress or control. They complement each other, each bringing something the other's species typically lacks. One evening, about 6 months after that first dance, they're sitting together watching the stars from an observation deck. James reflects on how much has changed since that moment when he whispered, "I love you," and she smiled. "I thought I was hiding my confession in the music," James admits. "I thought maybe you wouldn't hear it clearly, or that I could pretend I hadn't said anything if it went badly." "I heard every word," Lyra says, her patterns displaying contentment. And I had already sensed every feeling behind those words for months, but hearing you speak them, choosing to be vulnerable rather than just silently experiencing emotion, that was the permission I needed to acknowledge my own feelings. She leans against him, a gesture of physical affection she's learned he values. You asked me once if Kelthir experience love. We do not traditionally, but you taught me what it feels like. Not by making me sense your emotions, but by choosing to speak them even when you thought it might be too much, too soon, too complicated. That choice, that vulnerability, that changed everything. Years later, when historians examine the period following the Human-Kelthir peace treaty, they note that one of the most significant factors in deepening cooperation between the species was the visible success of cross-species relationships. And the relationship often cited as the first public example of such bonds was between a human cultural liaison